We're live. We're live.
Hey, welcome. This is another episode of Real Talk with Lady Hale. Obviously, I am not Lady Hale. This is Anton Dowse. I'm the host of Politics and the People, and I am going to be guest hosting tonight to help out my dear friend, Lady Hale, who her husband has suffered an unfortunate loss in their family, and so we send them prayers and we uplift them, and we just keep them in our prayers tonight as they're out of town to bury their loved one. Tonight is a very special show, though. I am joined by some amazing people. First and foremost, my good buddy, my friend, my pal, Josh Mica is in the house of Pause, Impact, and I will tell you something about this guy. Recently, he told me about a situation where he's trying to get money funds together for an organization called Thomas Street Health Center, and they're having Thanksgiving dinner, and they're looking to feed 400 individuals. They needed, 25 turkeys?
28.
28 turkeys, okay, 28 turkeys, and so, you know me, I go on the move and start trying to get some money together, and so luckily we were able to get 2 checks.
Yes.
2 nice checks. I'm gonna be very candid about this. I reach out to everybody when there's a need, right? So I reached out, I sent messages, texts, and things to people that I knew that definitely should have the money to spare. I'd like to thank 2 individuals that definitely immediately, within a minute of sending that, I want a glass of that, and
Josh, what did I tell you, Josh?
and
This is why this is Jesus water. This is Jesus water.
yes, and so I'd like to thank 2 individuals that came through immediately upon receiving my text and said that they would have checks ready. So those 2 people were Councilman Mike Knox and Councilman Mike Kubash.
Yes.
Yes, made $200 checks payable automatically to Thomas Street Health Center. And I know for a fact that Mike Knox wrote it off his personal account. That being said, I'm the type of person where I really expect that type of help to come if it's a black person requesting it. I really would like to see it come from the black community. Reinvestment into the black community. Not necessarily making this about race, but just saying that if I'm a black person asking for help in our community, I want to see more people get involved in that effort, right? Now, my statement is not an endorsement of Mike Knox and Councilman Kubash. It's ultimately just pointing out a specific thing that we know to be true consistently in our community, is that when we need help, typically that help doesn't always come from our community. And so how do we fix that? So 2 of my guests tonight, we're going to talk about how we fix that. Yeah, we're going to talk about how we fix that.
I would like to also say, shout out to Mark Flores. He's running for Congress,
Okay.
District 18. He also donated.
Oh, Mark Flores.
He donated.
Okay. What did he donate?
He donated 20 pies, as well as 100 bottles of water.
Yeah, I did see that.
And he also donated bread rolls as well too.
So shout out to Mark Flores, who's here locally. He's running for Congress,
Yes.
donating the pies and the bottled water. We still need more, though, right?
So yes, and also I just want to acknowledge people who have donated. He's running for at-large 5, Eric Dick. He wrote me a check for $250 that night that he was here with me, and we were talking about it. And he's like, "How much do you guys want?" I was like, "Well, how much do you want to give me?" But he wrote me a check right there and then for 2. He was one of the first people who wrote us a check. Eric Dick, he's running for at-large, so really a shout out to him for giving us.
Eric
and
Dick.
then council member, I wrote out, not the council member, but
because he's at large. He's running for at-large 5.
Yes.
Eric Dick is running for city council at-large 5.
and then Commissioner Ellis.
Rodney Ellis.
Rodney
Mr.
Ellis.
Rodney
He has donated, so we needed 45 pies, and they have agreed. We only had 20 pies from Mark Floors, and they have agreed to donate the remainder of the pies needed
Oh, wow.
for Thomas Street. So shout out to Ronnie Ellis and their team to get it done. I mean, they contacted me like within a day
Awesome.
of us telling them what we needed. So
So Commissioner Rodney Ellis.
yes,
And Mark
Eric-
Flores is running for Congress.
Eric Dick.
Which congressional district is that? Is that 22? What is it?
He's 18.
18?
18.
Oh, so that's Sheila Jackson.
That's Sheila
Lee.
Jackson Lee's
Oh, she's
district.
got a lot of people.
Yes.
Interesting. But so and then Councilman Kabosh and Knox, and man, people coming through, and so we need to see more of this in our community. Definitely for organizations like Thomas Street. Tell us a little bit, real quick, Josh, about Thomas Street and what they do.
So Thomas Street is the first HIV clinic here in Houston that offers testing for low-income people who are living with HIV. You can go there if you have regular insurance as well too, but the main process of Thomas Street is part of the Harris County Hospital District, which means that it's low income and people who need like assistance through the Ryan White Care Act. So Ryan White pays for most of our medications and pays for our doctor's visits. That's approved through Congress money. But we need a clinic to go there, and it was the first clinic actually in Houston to provide HIV care for people living with HIV, which is pretty amazing. And so we've been doing this since 1992. The council has been there, and they provided free meals. So we provide, when you come in there, Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays or Fridays, if you have lab work or if you have a doctor's appointment, we understand that you're going to be there for a while. And so we want to make sure you come out of there with at least a meal or something in your stomach, or if you're going to be there for labs, or if you are like NPO, which means nothing by mouth, until you get all your labs done, and we'll provide you a sandwich. So that's something that the council has done for several years, and we've also done the Thanksgiving meal, which we provide a meal, which is usually the only meal that they'll receive, a hot meal, maybe the whole year. For sure, that Thanksgiving meal, that's probably the only thing that they'll have. And it's a huge deal just because to be honored, to be respected like that, to have somebody, I'm privileged enough to have friends that I have multiple Thanksgiving. I go to my friend's house, I have a Thanksgiving here, I go to my other friend's house with my family, but many people don't have that community behind them. And this is just real life. And so what we offer to them is just some kind of dignity that they get to enjoy a happy meal, and just being respected that they get to have this opportunity. And then we also have a toy drive that's coming up as well too. And so if you guys are looking to give some toys, we'll definitely take them off your guys' hands. There's a lot of people that that will benefit, kids, the parents who are living with HIV, and they need help as well too.
Yeah.
So we're not just worried about the patient, we also worried about the child. So when they bring their kids in, we feed them as well too. We don't turn anybody away when it comes down to food for the money through services, through the sandwich program or their Thanksgiving program, which is pretty unique.
There's a lot of toy drives coming up, so I would tell anybody if you're interested in doing anything, it doesn't have to be. People think that in order to give, that you need to give $100 or $200 to have all this money. Some children would be happy just to have one Hot Wheels car.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't have anything, and so if right now, if you didn't have $5 and I handed you a $5 bill, which I'm not going to do that because you don't know you got a lot of money.
He should.
That's going to be a big deal for you. And so we need to do what we can, as much as we can with the means that we have. So
With that being said, just one thing real quick, and then I'll shut up. But we had somebody a youth dance team, ages from 6 to 12, and they donated their little cash they put together, and donated $16.
Oh, awesome.
$16 to them is an enormous amount of money.
Josh, I have someone, she says, when can she meet with you? She wants to donate 10 large cans of green beans for Thanksgiving.
ASAP, because our caterer has cut the deadline already. We've already turned it in everything, but I'm sure she'll make an adjustment for us so she can get with me tomorrow. I have a check to give to our caterer, and so I can exchange those two then, but we need it like ASAP.
Okay.
But that's it. Thank you, Anton, for giving me that little shout out.
Yeah, Josh, you're going to shut up now. No, I'm just kidding. That's my brother. So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest tonight. Hey, you know what? I didn't forget about you.
Yes, you did.
No, I
It's
did
okay.
not. I did not. And so, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone who you are and what you do?
I'm a little under the weather. I've been moving into my new building, but my name is Latrell Johnson, and I'm on the Demolishing Domestic Violence 365 team, where we started this year of rescuing women and men and children due to domestic violence, getting them to safe places. And it kind of just blew up from October and took on a life of its own, so it's 365 now. So that's what I'm doing. I also own my own plus-size boutique for women. So I'm just moving into the building. It'll be open soon on the 3rd. And so we're just trying to, keep women positive, safe for the holidays, because that's when the domestic violence really starts around the holidays due to a lot of stress, not having jobs, can't provide, and so it gets out of hand around the holidays.
Yeah, that's a good deal. I recognized when you were talking about the boutique, you guys had a fashion show that you did with Dr. Sugar Straps.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and it was some very nice outfits. And I will say this, that I love the confidence that I saw in the ladies that were modeling too, because a lot of people now, they're so self-conscious about, because society has said, they have to be a certain size. But I would tell you, anybody, if you get a chance to watch that video, it's definitely worth watching. The inspiration that you will get from it is very empowering. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk to these gentlemen that have joined us this evening. My show, Politics and the People, is all about that. It's about politics and the people in which the politicians serve. And so tonight we get to talk to two gentlemen that have decided to join the ranks of the political elites by running for office. First to my right, I have my friend, an amazing gentleman, has a good, solid background in education, and I think that's a big deal for us. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Elvonte Patton, who's running for House District 131, which is actually my district,
Right.
Where I live as well. So, keep put your feet to the fire, buddy.
I want you to.
Hey, so tell us a little bit, Elvonte. Tell us, a little bit about your background, and then what made you decide to run.
All right, so ultimately my background, I'm an Army brat. So I moved to Houston from Killeen, Texas, Fort Hood, for those that know the military and the large military base in Texas, one of the largest in the United States, Fort Hood. I came to Houston by way of Texas Southern University, and I spent 4 years working on my bachelor's degree. I also got a master's degree from there. Also was a student athlete at Texas Southern. I got involved in politics once I seen how our schools were functioning, and I felt like it was time for a change. And why not me to change the system and shake up some things within the education ranks? And I ran for school board my first race. I came up a little short, but I felt like it was well deserved, and I learned a whole lot. So I didn't lose anything. I learned a lot though. Now I have my eyes on state representative. Why? I feel like because our community is changing so much, and the young people finally need a seat at the table. If we're going to constantly talk about education and have our representatives not truly be in education the way they should be, I don't believe anything's going to be fixed. Also, when I think about my grandmother that's in 3rd Ward, in Sunnyside, in 5th Ward, I'm saying that to say not my actual grandmother, but people that I can look at as my grandparents suffering from health issues of what's not being taken care of in our districts, and we're not holding our elected officials accountable for that. I felt like it was time for a change. And after reading Martin Luther King, why not? Why wait? It's time. And if I'm going to be the one to have to change it, great. And I'll be that person to stand in the gap for those until they're ready.
Yes.
And that's why I chose to go ahead and run now, because I see issues that I can fix now that we don't have to continue to wait on.
Hey, and I can definitely appreciate that. One of the things I learned about you, because we ultimately became familiar with one another when you were running the first time.
Right.
And I was running for something, you were running, and we both took a loss in the eyes of, just outsiders. But what they didn't really understand was that we were learning in that moment how the system works and where we're really needed, right? We can argue that, yes, we need us on the school, especially young black men like ourselves. We're definitely needed on the school boards. We're definitely needed at the state level, at the state's Board of Education.
Correct.
At the TEA, whatever. But where we're really needed is in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, because those are the people that help to determine where that funding goes. So
Right.
write bills that can help generate a higher quality of education, more constraints that force districts, charter schools to act appropriately in educating our children better. I mean, if you think about what is currently going on with HISD, is representative of that failure, right? A lot of people want to blame it solely on one party, and that party being TEA. But we have to be realistic about who's truly at fault. And I tell a lot of people what we really need to do with that finger versus turning it outward is realistic, turn it in, as the community has also played a part, played a role in that failure because we waited till the last minute to respond. If you look at it, as you know, I ran for Alief ISD school board. I didn't run because I wasn't privy to what was going on in the district. I ran because people that were at the seat, that were in the seat, the educators, were telling me the issues that they were faced with. And a lot of it wasn't about funding. It wasn't that the district wasn't well funded, because we're a well funded district. It was the fact that the hierarchy, the administration level, the executive level, while they're getting their good salaries, no one is thinking about the resources needed to educate black and brown children and what that really looks like, how much it costs, and what things you really need to put in place for these children that, like you said, Josh said earlier about the people that come to the clinic that may be the one meal they get. Well, guess what? In our black and brown schools, a lot of those children, the only meals they get are actually at the school.
Well, guess what though? Not to cut you off. It took me to actually go into the classroom to understand the needs of the teacher and the needs of the students. So a lot of times we have policymakers making decisions and they never sat in a classroom as a teacher or a student in the past, 30 years? That's a gap. That's a big gap that most people are not paying attention to. And when I sit in my classroom and I get frustrated by being a science teacher that have no resources, but you're expecting my kids to pass the same STAR test as you would with a kid that has everything they need. However, when I look at education from a different standpoint, because we're quick to say what our kids don't have.
Yes.
So, but one thing that's not regulated in education is tutoring. And what we have to understand is we have to begin to put policies on tutoring. Why do I say that? I say that because when I look at my Caucasian counterparts, they have the money in River Oaks to pay for a tutor all year round. No matter how well their kid's doing, they're trying to see how far ahead they can get. For us, as African Americans, we only get a tutor when we feel like we're behind. So at that point, tutoring is $1 billion business that's not regulated and have no policy on it. So at the end of the day, that's some things that we need to begin to think about in our black and brown communities is how are we going to bring in tutors that's going to tutor our kids all the way around so they can push to get to Harvard and Yale and Princeton.
Well, with that being said, I think, let's talk about, because Patton University, it's your brainchild, it's your baby, it's what you created, and I watched you helping to progress young children in our communities, but instead of, and this is not a stab at you, this is a very important thing. Even though parents had to pay for the tutoring, it did two things in my eyes. It held the parents accountable for the success of their child. Even though the payment was not that much, it also made them, like if I said, hey, this is free, how often would you really bring your child?
And I gave scholarships out.
Exactly.
to students that couldn't afford the full price. Basically, it came for free. It
And-
was a dedication that you have to promise me that your kid is going to be here weekly at this time in order for me to do it for free.
And you don't necessarily, with your educational background, it's not necessary that you have to be the person doing this tutoring. Because if we look at any of our black and brown communities, there are a ton of people in our communities with bachelor's degrees, with associate's degrees. Let's not leave them out, because even accomplishing that, getting an associate's degree is still a step, right? And so if we know that our children are struggling with math skills, and a lot of that's general math, it's not realistically algebra or calculus or trigonometry or whatever other, this Common Core math that you see today, but it's general math, it's reading, it's writing skills.
We have to change the narrative, though, because the reason why I say you have to change the narrative, anybody that does the research on our neighborhoods, number one, in my neighborhood I only have in my area, in my district, I only have 7 people with doctorate degrees. To me, that says a lot. What is a kid aiming for? If only 7 people, that means some little spots here and there with doctorate degrees. Then you only have a few master's degrees. Most of my district is just barely graduating high school.
Yeah.
So that has to change. Like, we have to change the narrative altogether. And no, I'm not just pushing college. However, I'm pushing education. And one thing we have to understand is our kids have to get out. They have to figure out, they got to get out to go somewhere.
Yes.
To get a trade, you're going to have to graduate high school. To go to college, you're going to have to graduate high school. So we got to get you to a point where you can sustain educationally at least through high school.
Yes.
Now, past that, what you choose to do career-wise, I feel like it's totally on you.
Yes.
However, I feel like I'm responsible to getting you to that level.
Yes, to where you can survive, whichever direction you choose, whether it's to take on a trade or to continue your education in college. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about consistently over the last few months is, a lot of communities, a lot of school districts are focusing on making you college ready. But we know that there are children out there that are just not going to take that pathway. So what do? We know that mechanics make good money. We know electricians make good money. We know plumbers make good money.
I'm going to tell you something that's funny. I'm going to tell you guys something that's funny. One thing that we fail to do in the African American community is watching trends.
Yes.
We catch the trend when it's too late. TA just put out a test in September for human services and consumer sciences. So now you can get certified. That should tell you what's about to happen. So now they're about to go to the trades.
Yes.
They're going that direction. How many of us are going to go out and take that test to get certified? That's what we have to begin to push the narrative and change the narrative. Because what's going to end up happening is we're going to be 5 years behind.
Yes.
It's going to be already out there, and they're going to say, well, we've been had it for you. You chose not to get certified in it. That's on you now that your schools don't have trades.
And you're absolutely right. And we talked about that a lot the other day when we sat down. I would challenge everyone to reach out to Elvonte. Definitely a breath of fresh air when you get to talk to a young brother that actually has researched and understands what's really going on in the community. So I commend you, brother. All right, we got my man over here. I've talked to this young man, and I've seen and watched a lot of the movements that he's been making. And definitely glad to have you here, my brother, Mr. Sam Smith, who's running for Texas Rep for District 141.
Yes, sir.
Whose district is that?
That's Sophia Thompson.
Sophia Thompson. You guys are going after y'all are.
Whoa! I'm not going after anybody. Let's get. Hold on.
You
Let's
sure? Hey, wait.
Let's get
I
this straight. Hold on, Sam. Let me clear some stuff up.
I don't know. Elvonte over here, he got defensive now.
Here it is. I'm not. Yes, is currently Dr. Amma Allen is holding the seat.
She's currently
yes,
the
she
seat
is.
warmer.
But I'm not running for her seat. My thing is, I'm not running to end the era of Amma Allen. Let's get that straight. I'm running to start a new era of those that's to come next. Because at the end of the day, the millennials will come next, whether it be this year coming up, the next year, or the year after. Eventually, our time will come. And we have to be prepared and we have to be ready. So no, I'm not running in the era of I'm out. I think she's doing a great job. I think she's done a great job. So no, I'm not running against her to remove her. However, I do believe that it's time for a breath of fresh air, and it's time for some younger people to step up and do what they need to do. So I just want to put that on the table.
No, you know what? I can't argue with that, and I appreciate you saying it because, you know, my generation, and I'll apologize on behalf of my generation. I'm 44 years old. I'm much older than you, gentlemen. And we did not really work diligently enough to prepare you. And people above me have not even started to cultivate young people like you to replace or take over the reins and move us forward into the future. So thank you for that, and thank you for also jumping into this, because a lot of people don't understand that getting into politics is a big deal. It's tiring, it's thankless, and it costs you a lot, time and money. And a lot of times you don't get the money back, and the time you definitely lose. And we all know that time is the most important thing.
Depends on why you're running, though. You know, I sorry to take away from your shine, Sam, but it really does depend on why you're running. If you're running for the right reasons, it's beyond a thank you.
Well, it can be rewarding.
Because when I think about all the homeless people that I go out here and I serve, all the times I go into my classroom and I'm a father to one of these kids, or I'm that uncle that these kids need, and they can see a brighter future because they see a future in me. It's beyond politics for me.
Yeah.
Now it's time to fight for those that can't fight for themselves right now. So to me, it's personal.
Yes.
And when it becomes personal, like I said, at the end of the day, it's not about Dr. Alma Allen when it's all said and done. It's about these kids that need me, that's in pre-K right now. They might not ever get a chance to see Dr. Alma Allen, but they might can look back and say, I can remember Mr. Elvonte Patton, and he was there, and he fought to make sure I got free lunch. He fought to make sure that my mama's lights stayed on. He fought to make sure that my parents that was on drugs got everything they need so I can be successful. That's what I do this for. So it's not to be highlighted as the person, oh, he's running against this person. No, because somebody out here needs a voice, and I'm going to be that voice for them regardless of anybody likes it or not. They deserve a voice, and I'm going to be that person for them. So each one of my students that I teach every day, all 60 of them, have a voice now.
Yes.
Win, lose, or draw, somebody's going to hear them, and somebody's going to have to pay attention.
Dude, you preach to the choir, but that's why I think we mess so much, because of that same mentality that somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to set the stage. And realistically, I believe that if they won't let you take their stage, you build your own.
Right.
So the win, lose, or draw, the movement keeps going, right?
Right.
The movement doesn't stop, you know. And when I say movement, I always tell people, you know, everything we do when we set out to do what's right and what's on the at the behest and a good way for others, it's a movement. It is no longer just an idea. It's a movement.
Oh, yeah.
And so thank you for that. Now, Mr. Smith, we're back to you.
I'm turning
now.
my mic off.
You stay with us, young man. You stay with us. So, Mr. Sam Smith is running for House District 141. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to put your hat in the fire, your ring, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I moved here after Katrina in 2005.
You're a transplant too.
Yeah. So I used to volunteer in a lot of schools in North Forest Independent School District, and I saw how the school district was so messed up, and then it gave it up to HSD, and now we still dealing with the same issues. I see how our community is underserved for a long time. We don't have, in my community, we don't have economic development. We don't have the resources that we need in the community. And so my mom always told me that if you want to change, sometimes you have to create it yourself. I believe that people who making $7.25 an hour should be making $15 an hour. Because rent is like $9.10 right now. We can't live off that, I'm just being honest. And these are things we have to think about. I volunteer in a lot of schools teaching band. I taught band in North Forest Independent School District at Forest Brook Middle School before they took over. So I know what it's like. It's so many kids are broken on a daily basis. Some kids don't have parents at home. They have a kid in high school taking care of a little brother, little sister. And so these are things that we deal with. But we have people who are in the office who make laws to hurt black and brown people on a daily basis. I think criminal justice needs to be reformed. We have people who sit in jail over marijuana charge. They can't get out. They don't have the money. So now they lost their job. They lost their apartment, and their car got repoed. These are things that we deal with. House Bill 1842 should never happen. I think this bill should be created to help the schools, not to close them. And this bill attacking our schools now. We hardly have schools in our neighborhood. We see what we deal with on a daily basis. Some people live from paycheck to paycheck. I know this because I live this. So for me to make the change, I believe that I have to create it. I just can't advocate no more. I have to take it to Austin and make new laws for us to better our community.
So, here's what I'm gonna do for you, mister, because Elvonte and myself, very big on education. You get to throwing education around and immediately our wheels get to turning and we're like, okay, what, you know, so I'm gonna ask you this question. As a representative, your hands are you're not really able to do a whole lot in that education arena because you're not Mike Morath, you're not the governor, you're not, you know, the deputy commissioner or governor's AJ Crabbill.
Right.
So as a representative, realistically, you are nothing more than an advocate for education because your sole job is to make sure that education gets properly funded by ensuring that money, when it's available, or land management, the General Land Office, whatever the fund is, that has what, $60 billion in it right now, that money gets properly dispersed to the districts, especially Title I districts.
Right.
Yes. HISD, all the children there getting free lunch. All the children. Not just a few, not just the ones whose parents were on special programs from the state or the government, but all children. What does that tell you? That tells you that if other districts outside of that are not doing it, we are failing. We are absolutely failing. So as a House representative, that is ultimately a great responsibility. Hey, why are you guys not doing that? Is there something I can do on my end to help you? Is it a funding issue? Do we need to create a bill that makes sure that that's absolute, that every student in Texas gets free lunch and some snacks to take home? So, I see the wheels are turning on my table.
I believe that.
So what do you think on that? And then I'm gonna let Elvonte, because I know being there, being an educator, and then being on the ground, boots on the ground, Elvonte's really spinning. But I want to hear your perspective on it because you're saying that you want to represent the people of Texas, not just your district.
Yeah.
Because when you vote, you'll be voting on bills and things that affect people in Amarillo, Dallas, El Paso, San Antonio, Austin, Lake Jackson, Jasper, Texas, Midland, Texas. That's
you need a pen and start taking some notes.
Nah, you need to take notes.
Oh no, you're welcome to the show. It says Real Talk, and the radio station is Real Talk.
I want to hear what you have to say about this because I don't think I agree with you.
No, and here's the deal. This is a collective, and what that means is we don't have to necessarily agree. What our goal is to ultimately understand where each other's coming from and find common ground, and if not, learn something new.
Right.
So I want to know, where do you see yourself as far as an advocate, not as a rep for education? I'm gonna be honest with you, you have very little to do with that. That's like
ask him what programs he's willing to start.
Yeah, what programs? Because if you think about this, let's talk about this.
Don't be trying to throw him under the bus.
I'm hitting him. I'm throwing him an alley.
You throwing you like, boom, man, go slam that. Because here's the deal: in Texas, I don't qualify for pre-K for my child because we made some pretty good decisions financially, right? But there are people that truly, struggle based upon maybe not being able to get a good well-paying job or whatnot, and they do qualify, which means that I now have to send my child to a child daycare facility that may cost
Or
me,
private school.
or private school, which now I have to pay for, which now brings my income down lower. My children are missing out on additional things because you know how much it was for me to send my child to daycare?
Mm-hmm.
It was $800 a month. $800 a month, $200 a week for my child to go to pre-K.
And that depends on the
That is-
age also.
Do the math on that on how much it is. It's almost $10,000 a year.
And don't be late. They
Oh,
gonna charge you.
and that, and so, but I
5,000
also pay.
minutes,
Here's the
something
deal,
like that.
because we're about to get to this question, but I just want to stack you up some facts and some stuff so you are well informed. But guess what? I also pay. I pay the tax rate to the district, to the ISD. So while I'm paying that $2,500 or whatnot to the district, I'm still paying the district. So I am over $10,000 in payments for the year. And yet I don't have the ability to take advantage of the pre-K at the school. Though it sucks because it's half a day. Now we're throwing you some tidbits. So this is stuff, and we're ultimately preparing you, brother.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're a young black man looking to jump into politics at a very high level. This is not school board. This is not precinct chair. This is not city council. You are saying that you want to jump into the shark pit, and you may be a minnow at this point. I mean, no shots. I'm just saying. I'm just being honest. We have to be strong. We have to be real when we say we want to jump into these arenas. So, with that being said, where do you see yourself, and what types of programs, what types of things do you think that you could implement at the state level? In your role as representative to better serve Houstonians in the educational arena?
I think, first of all, I want to expand funding for all schools, for us to create more pre-K programs for every child. It doesn't matter what the parent made. I think every child should be eligible to go. I think the pre-K program should be all day, like a regular school hours, 8 hours a day. I believe that every district should offer free lunch and free breakfast to every child, because that'll probably be the only meal that child will get that day. And so these are things that we deal with every day with kids. I also believe that I think every school should have after school programs, no matter what it is, a Title I school or not a Title I school, because some parents have to work double jobs, so they give parents extra time to pick the child, so they don't have to pay for daycare and stuff like that after school.
So if I heard you correctly, and I'm gonna let you go ahead and rebut that, Elvonte, because I know that you're like me, and so my wheels get to turning. Now I heard some valuable things. You heard me. He heard us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he definitely heard us. So definitely my thing would be yes, full day pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
Not just breakfast and lunch, but also an evening meal right before they leave, because, or at least there are programs where they're taking vegetables and fruits and things home at certain districts. The kids can take it back home, but we have to make it so that child is not bullied by other children that realize that the reason why you get that stuff is because your family may not be financially in the best place. So we need to realistically do that for everybody, so that way nobody can discriminate. Also for me, now this is just at an education level, if I was an administrator at a district, if I was a school board member, uniforms for all children, because I want to take away the element of you being able to talk about me because you got the new Jordans or the Currys or whatnot, and I got the shoes from Walmart. Because what that does is that distracts young men and women in the school, because bullying and other things can also create, we can almost create certain situations where children become suicidal, they feel left out, there's all kind of things that we want to. So what I would tell you is that yes, full day pre-K, fully funded, so that parents don't have to worry about whether they make too much money or don't make enough money, whatever the case may be. Also, at least 3 meals at the school level. Me, that bill would also include extending the school day. Because what I would also include, you talked about it earlier, is tutorials. So that where it's not something where you have to necessarily just stay behind because you're failing. Everybody needs to be there for that 1 hour tutorial. So I need my children that are excelling. What I'm going to do is now utilize them as an additional tool for outreach to their peers. Now I'm teaching them leadership skills because they're now helping their peers with those things that they're struggling with. Sometimes we need to utilize the resources that are right in front of us. And so for me, that's that. But also,
Free transportation too, because some parents don't have transportation to get their kids to school, pick them up from school. So we need free transportation through the district
well,
too.
that's where the extended day goes into effect, but we need to utilize. You can have after school care all day long. They're playing basketball and doing whatever. What does that have to do? Though that's building social skills, but we know that we're we have a big issue. We talked about the other day. Where's Texas right now, Elvonte?
33rd. No, you said
34th. 34th in the nation for education. 34th out of 50 states. We're beneath Missouri and Kansas. I'm from Missouri. So let me explain something to you real quick, and I'm going to get to you. I'm sorry, brother. So with this HISD takeover, I'm not too discouraged, and I'm going to tell you why. You may take it the wrong way, but you may understand when I finally tell you. So I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City the Kansas City, Missouri School District lost its accreditation from the state. Meaning, realistically, if you graduate from Kansas City, you'll get a diploma. Didn't really mean much. Current person you have at TEA, the Deputy Commissioner of Governors.
Oh, you're talking about
AJ Crabbill. Guess who got on the school board just a little bit after the district had lost their accreditation? AJ Crabbill. Guess who helped get their accreditation back, and get our schools back in check? We closed some schools. We had to put kids in other schools and get things in check. It took a little bit, scrubbing the budget and things like that. Because you got here in Texas, you guys are top heavy. Mm-hmm. You got superintendents that make $400,000. Well, guess how much the superintendent for LAUSD makes? The same, with 600,000 students and over 1,100 schools. They're the second largest school district in the nation. And our superintendents here make the same money for a smaller headache.
Right.
So what I would tell you is that when you are talking about what you want to do, you have to be clear of how bad the picture really is and what your capabilities are. So, Elvonte, you helped my brother out because we want to make sure. I'm very happy that you decided to run. I am, and I'm gonna hammer him too, because but we have to be clear. When we decide to jump into the fight, when we decide to start the revolution, we cannot play around.
Right.
Because the odds are definitely not in your favor. This is not Hunger Games.
Right.
Well, it is Hunger Games, realistically. You're fighting for your life, realistically. Right. So, let's talk about that. So, Elvonte, what was your take? What is it that you feel is important for a person running for state rep?
I feel like 1842 was a wake-up call.
It was.
To all the black communities, get your stuff together. Pretty much. Like, that's what it's telling you. We're going to have to band together and take care of our own education system. Point blank, period. So, even though 1842 hurt HISD, it should be a wake-up call because most of the schools that was in IR happen to be African-American schools. At what point did the community say, let's go into this school and turn this school around? I didn't see it happen. What we did was we turned around and said, we want our government to fix the issues that we have in our own community. So with that, I'm kind of, I hear you, but we could have fixed our own issue. But I also believe that as young people, we have to look deeper into issues. We only scratch the surface. I feel like we looked at the problem, but we never dissected the problem. And I simply said that tutoring is $1 billion business, which our Caucasian counterparts take full advantage of, and we don't. I think that is one of our first steps and our first programs that we have to implement for each one of our kids. One thing that you brought mention to was every kid in HISD get free lunch, right?
Yes.
So what does that do to us with our STAR test? You know what that means? We don't have to score as high. Is that good or bad that a 56 on a STAR test in HISD is passing? So, who do we blame? Do we blame us or do we blame our policymakers? That's something that we have to begin to truly think about and hone in on and say, what can we change? This summer, Anton knows that I traveled to Europe
Yes.
and studied education policy internationally, not just in Houston, not just in Texas, not just in the United States, but in another country that's ranked 7th in the world. So my thing is, what are they doing that is fixing education that we can bring home? Guess what was the first thing they were doing? Tutoring their kids. It's called kitchen table learning, where teachers go to the kid's house and teach them at home. Those are some of the things that we have to begin to create programs to implement. Because if we're not implementing those types of situations, we're not going to change the education system. Okay, we also talked about, well, you talked about free transportation. Where's this money coming from?
Yeah.
These are programs that we're going to have to realize, where is the money going to come from? Because my beautiful lady over here is going to tell me I'm not going to be willing to put more tax money in to get the same results. So we have to realize that we're going to be on an uphill battle when talking about getting funds for education. So that is some of my things that I think about, and my wheels get to turning, because now when I think about the automobile, it's changing over time. When I think about education in the classroom, it's not changing. It looks exactly the same as it did in 1906 as it does in 2019. That's a problem. So what that looks like is it's time for us to change education beyond paying the teacher.
Right.
Now we have to change it as a whole so we can really dissect the whole situation to make a better situation for everybody. Free pre-K across the board. I'm with it, I'm for it. However we can make that happen, I'm all for it. I'm down for it. However, but we have to realize if we're going to do it, we need to take advantage of it. A lot of us don't take advantage of it, so the people that's paying for their pre-K, they're taking advantage of it. So my thing is, we have to be careful with all the gifts that we give out, because when you start giving out gifts and it's not taken advantage of, now it looks like, hey, y'all just throwing money down the drain.
Right.
So, you know, that's kind of like some of my spiel on education and where we need to go to at least start the conversation to be better, because I was against paying teachers more money, especially after you're going to tax it, so I really didn't get anything. So yeah, you gave more money, but I didn't see it because you taxed it. Mm-hmm. So that was a game that was played, and we bid on it. Yay, raise teacher pay, but don't give them the money. Hey, voila. So.
Well, I think one of the big things about that pay raise situation was that I believe that it should have been outlined as to who could get that raise, because guess who got a good portion of it?
All your
top
administrators.
line. Yes, your executive level administrators. We should have realistically, and this is my own personal opinion, I think we should have started from the bottom and worked our way up, because we have, who gets the kids to school?
But listen to what you're saying, though. You're talking from a standpoint of understanding. When you got lawmakers that don't understand that anymore, they're too far removed to understand it, why would you think that would be something they would implement?
Yeah. Well, you gotta think about it. How many of them still have children in our public
Oh,
school
not many.
system?
Their grandkids are my age. Truth be told.
I do know a representative. I reached out to him because I recognized he posted a picture of his daughter. And I was like, hey, I recognize that badge. Does she go to blah, blah, blah school? He was like, yeah. And I was like, hey, my son goes there too. Public school, A-Leaf.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I'm a little bit stronger. I feel stronger about you because you could have easily went to one of the Catholic schools or one of the Episcopal whatever schools in Bel Air or whatnot and paid $36,000 a year for your child to get an education.
However, one thing I challenge every educator to do is to teach in their community. How many of our people are teaching outside of their own community?
A lot.
So my thing is, if you will break down and say, you know what, these kids might be horrible, but they're my kids.
Yes.
Because the same kids I'm teaching are possibly the same kids that could be breaking into my house. But if I have that understanding with them, I'm more protected by them than I am harmed from them.
Oh my
So
God.
that's the thing that we have to begin to think about. Why do I need to travel 20 miles to go teach somebody else's kid that don't look like me, that I never have to worry about, but I can come here 2 miles from my house and teach the same kid that possibly could be breaking in to Anton's house tomorrow. But rather than that, they're looking at Mr. Patton and say, I have a fighting chance. So
That man, I don't know if you saw the look on my face. I told you we meshed very well because that's how I explain it to people. Because here's the deal. So I was in Pearland. My brother-in-law lives in Pearland. And a real nice house, nice neighborhood, you know, Fort Bend ISD, good schools, rated I think 8 on great schools. And we were talking, I was talking, he had a bunch of people over, and we were talking about education, because you can't talk about education with me. I'll ream you a good one if you say the wrong thing. And so brother said, hey man, I said, well, he said, so what do you do? I said, well, you know, we had a moving company at the time, and I said, well, and also I advocate for education because education is the foundation to success. If we don't teach our kids now, especially during the years where they're more receptive to learning, meaning pre-K on, and we need pre-K 3. We need 3-year-olds because they're really, my son at 3, he was a sponge. And so I said, but the problem is the funding and, you know, people that, you know, don't really put in, you know, they don't feel like it's worth investment. You guys don't have a state income tax, which means that you have to depend on property tax for money for the district, along with the small amount of money. We get about $8 million from for A-Leaf ISD from the feds. That's nothing. Our budget's in the billions. So he was like, well, Anton, think about this. If you work really hard to get your family to where they are, you have your nice house, your car, your career, everything's in place, you got money for your kids' college. Do you really feel like your money should be going towards other people's kids that can do the same thing as you?
Yes.
It took everything within me to not ream him the
I have a
newest.
question for you. You know about Kerr?
Who?
Kerr High
Kerr?
School?
Yeah,
You see,
Curry's right across the street from where my son goes.
you see how they run their school, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's working. They have like a 90% going to college rate, right?
Well, we could. Oh, you want to have a real discussion about Kerr and A-Leaf Early College?
Yeah, we could
So
definitely do that.
Kerr and A-Leaf Early College, for those that don't know, they are the top performing schools in our district. The problem is
Hard
when
to
you
get.
break it down and look at who's actually in that school.
Right.
They're Africans, they are Asian students, and they're Indian students.
So I'm not fighting the demographics. What I'm fighting is the structure. Because
They're self-taught.
thank you.
They're self-taught.
My thing is, I go into my classroom and they tell me that I have to teach this kid that knows more about science than I do, right? So the reason why I say that is because I can give a kid an iPhone, they learn how to work it in a matter of minutes. However, I can give them an assignment and they don't know it. It's not because they don't want to know it, it's because it's not interesting to them.
Yes.
So when I break that down and show them that this is how you can break down an iPhone with the same technology and the same math problem, each one of those kids get it.
Oh yeah.
So my thing
This
is,
has to be engaging.
the structure of education must change. And I
Yes.
tell all my kids, I'm not teaching you anything because you have to become responsible for your own education. So I give them everyday problems of life to solve. Because we have too many problems on this earth right now that need to be solved, and guess who's going to solve them? The kids that's sitting at the desk today.
Absolutely. So Sam, one of the things that we were talking about here, because I definitely don't want to leave you out of the conversation. What we're talking about, so A-Leaf ISD has 2 schools that are high-performing schools. There are reasons why they're high-performing schools, and a large percentage of them is the structure of education, meaning these children actually go in and they have a syllabus, they know when assignments have to be turned in, and they're just free to do what they need to do to get it in. There's no pressure, and there's nobody, even as an adult. Do you like people standing over you?
Nope.
Nope.
Exactly. So what they did was they took an idea and it flourished. They said, hey,
It's not an idea.
well, I
It's
mean,
done in Europe. That's how
well,
all Europe schools
for
are run.
us as the United States of America that lags behind most countries,
Right.
they would say it was their idea.
Okay.
So that's why I
Gotcha.
put truth behind it.
Gotcha.
So, A-Leaf Early College and Kerr are schools that outperform all the rest of the schools in our district at 90-something% across the board. Everything. They're meaning that these kids, they perform above grade level in everything. Now the demographic is kind of different. They're not traditional black children. They're African Indian, they're Hispanic, they're Chinese.
The other.
They're other.
The other.
Because you have to apply for this school, right? You got to get letters of recommendation. You can't have any disciplinary action ever taken against you, even if it's back in elementary. Now, what I will tell you about those schools, and I'll tell you what the truth is as well, because Kerr was listed as, based upon inside information, obviously, has our highest teen pregnancy.
I wouldn't be surprised, but also not to turn on a negative.
No, we
point.
just have to make sure that we understand
But-
that it's there.
Also, tell them about how the classroom is set up.
Yes.
The classroom is not set up
It's
by
not
grade.
traditional. It's
And
not
they have couches. They get to have an environment that's learning
So
and
it's a-
conducive of them.
It's a flourishing type of environment where you're free to blossom.
Yeah.
Realistically, this is real. Why does Google? Why is there so many people looking to work for Google? Because it's open. You can just be who you need to be. You can ride little tricycles around the campus. You can go walk up and get anything you want. Eat. Hell, even HostGator here in Houston has almost the same format where they go around with a beer cart. You get one beer while you're at work. Who would like that? I think I'd like that.
I will.
Why you pointing at me like that?
Because you really
I mean, I'm gonna be honest because this is something that think about this. I asked a person that works there, and you probably know Tara works there, and she told me I was like, I would work there, but they would need to have Snicker ice cream bars. She's like, no lie, we actually have. I'm like, oh wow. Could you
Maybe I need to go.
imagine just being free to be who you want to be and do what you want and still get work done and make money?
Right.
How many people would stay there forever?
That's why people like working at home.
Exactly. We need to start evolving. We need to start changing. And so these are the ideas. Elvonte dropped some gems on you right there. I've dropped some stuff on you. And the realization is saying we're here for you. That's the kicker. You're not running against Elvonte. So it's easy to go ahead and say, hey man, if that's what you want to do, if that's where you say your place is, you're destined for it, you're going to have to know these things and be able to apply it in your conversation because we can talk about education all day long. We can talk about how, if you look at A-Leaf, how it breaks down in HISD, it's the same issue. When you get into black and brown communities, the schools are ultimately suffering and failing. Schools in HISD don't have libraries or librarians and things like that. Those are great resources. Communities in Houston don't have libraries or don't have a multi-purpose center or a community center for those children to go and relieve some of that stress of what's going on at home, and so they're bottled up just like any adult. We have not done what's necessary to provide a positive environment for our community's children, and it's time for individuals like you and Elvonte that have decided to step forth and say, I will be the representative of the people. Then it's time for you to really, truly show the people that you are that person that deserves that opportunity. So, for those listening, you are more than welcome to call in. We're going to go ahead and open up the lines. If you want to call in, the number is 281-318-8650. That number again is 281-318-8650, and we are here to take your call. Definitely call in and pose your questions to these gentlemen, because we talked about education, but that's just not the girth of our issues here in this great city, and in this amazing state. We have flooding, we have economic instability. Sam talked earlier about we talked earlier about the minimum wage. Now, I would tell you, brother, I am a business owner. I've been an entrepreneur since age 17. I understand business very well, and when people get to talking about throwing $15 an hour on the table real fast to the most menial of jobs, I start to cringe and go, okay. So here's the deal. Here's my thought process. So young man running for another gentleman running for Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, Donovan Wilson. We had a conversation on my show, and he was talking about like $15 to $20 an hour for people working at McDonald's. And while I don't discredit the need, depending on if you're in California and you make less than $20 an hour at McDonald's, there's a problem, because California is expensive. New York is expensive. But in Texas, is that truly a favorable wage to make $20 an hour at McDonald's?
Yes.
So everybody's saying yes.
Yes.
I'm only saying yes because I had over 12 years experience in management, and they only wanted to pay me
$8.
$9 or $8.50. No, you're gonna pay me what I know I'm worth.
Wait, so hold on, let me go back, because I was a manager for McDonald's. I was the highest paid swing manager in the state of Missouri. Even the people that have been with the company for 10 years are pissed when they found out how much I made. So, what I would tell you, McDonald's is a great start, and I'm gonna tell you why. And then I want Elvonte, because his wheels are turning. I can see it. I know when he starts staring off into space, Mr. Elvonte Patton is thinking, and he's considering the evidence and the facts of the matter, and he's coming up with his own little whatever. So McDonald's should be what it's always been, a stepping stone. Most of my crew were what? 16-year-olds, kids that were annoying as that. They didn't understand responsibility, and they thought it was just about show up and get paid. That's exactly what McDonald's, Wendy's, Taco Bell, and
But it's
all
not
these
anymore
restaurants-
like that anymore. You have people who are trying to make a living, who are working 3 or 4 jobs temporary at McDonald's or at Taco Bell, at Popeyes, and they have lives. They have children. They have to pay the same amount of rent that you have to pay. They have to pay the same amount of bills that you have to pay. They have to get their lights on. They have to pay their water.
So-
they have to pay daycare.
Okay, but
And how are they supposed to pay daycare with a $5.15 an hour?
okay, the
So
McDonald's.
here's
Wait, hold on, Mr.
You want to give
The McDonald's I worked at was black owned. So you mean to tell me that when I left McDonald's and went to a KFC in Humble that was Iranian owned, that they paid me, and I was the store manager there. So they paid me what the price that I wanted because they knew. So you mean to tell me that a black owned company who has more than one store and they can afford this, but they tell you, oh no, I can only pay you, and I'm certified. So it's not like I'm just walking in and you have to train me. I've been doing this. I'm certified with 12 years behind me, and you mean to tell me $9 is all I deserve?
I think we got it all wrong.
all right, there we go. There he
I think
is.
we have it all wrong. And the reason why I say I believe we have it all wrong is because that's what we're settling for.
Yes,
But
right.
I
That's what I
said-
was going to say.
Yeah,
You
I didn't
said
say-
there.
No, I
However,
Okay.
I believe I would come in and I would advocate for programs for our community to be able to start their own business. Because right now, when we're looking at Sunnyside, we don't have businesses in Sunnyside. And we're wondering why we can't drive anything because we don't have anything to drive. So my thing is, I don't want $15 an hour. I want us to figure out how we can get some money for black and brown people to start their own businesses.
Yes.
That's what I think about. That's how you get out of the hole of depending on anyone. Because right now, when you tell me raise $15, $20, number one, education drives a whole lot. it drives a lot, regardless of if we want to settle for it or not. I just said I did the research, and 7 people in my district have a doctorate degree. Not many have masters, and very few have bachelors. So you're talking to my people to say all you're worth is $15 an hour. However, but I believe if we can create a fund of saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that that idea that you have, we'll fund this idea.
Yeah.
But these are the stipulations of funding your idea. That's way more than me giving you $15 an hour.
Dude, you know what, man, I don't like you. We're too much alike. I promise you, if my wife was here right now, she'd be looking at you going, he says that all the time. We have done a disservice to people because we have created career employees versus invest in those people. Like I told her, I said even something as crazy as studio time. Yeah, you can come get a loan for it, but here's the deal. We have this consultant that's going to go with you to ensure that you maximize the ability to be profitable and gain revenue on that time. Because people's ideas, people think, well, you know, the studio time, they may not be a rapper. I said, but I grew up in Kansas City.
We fail to understand how powerful education is. People feel like just sitting in a classroom is education. One thing I realized is every person needs a corporation.
Yes.
I guarantee you, if we play the same game as those that's playing with us, I promise you, we'll be all right. Go get a corporation, and you won't pay taxes. Whoa, that makes a big difference. When you know where to move your money, you're playing a different type of game. How many of us in our community know how to play a different type of game? So my thing is, we're constantly playing spades,
Yes.
dominoes,
And Monopoly.
and Monopoly. Well, one thing we fail to understand is how to play chess.
Yes.
Until we learn how to play chess, and very few of us know how to play chess.
Yes.
When you learn how to play chess, your life in the game changes.
Yes.
Can I just say, but not everybody wants to be a business partner. Not everybody wants to have a business.
Right.
We should still be able to provide a livable minimum wage to people who want to be working at McDonald's. I mean, people do want to work at these lower jobs, and it may not be it may not be for me, not be for you, and maybe somebody out there does want to have their own business, but somebody who is comfortable working at McDonald's or is comfortable working at their part-time job or wherever they're at for a minimum wage, whether it's landscaping or whether it's
You said landscaping.
Construction.
Let's go to landscaping, right?
yes.
I'm better off teaching you how to fish than giving you fish. Because
Yes.
right now, giving you $15 an hour is giving you fish. Because when I think about the landscaper in my house, he's making almost $60 an hour owning his own. But he's probably paying the person that's actually mowing the grass $15 an hour. So think about how much money, and my yard's only this big. So just imagine how much money this owner of this company is actually bringing in. That's because he learned how to fish.
Yes.
Right now, it's easy to say, I don't want to learn how to fish because I don't know how.
Right.
That's easy to say. But I guarantee you, if we go into Sunnyside to the same people that's selling dope on the street and tell them, I know how that you can make legal money the same way, that's teaching them how to fish.
Right.
So that's criminal justice reform right there.
Yes.
So that's what I began to think about. I don't think about the little things that's on the surface of, oh, that weed charge, you shouldn't be in jail for that. Yeah, you're exactly right. But think about this. When you go to Sunnyside, one of the most dangerous places in the world right now is what, number 6 in the nation, I believe, Sunnyside. So my thing is, what are we doing when we take those kids off the street, we put them behind bars, and guess what we do? We put them right back in the same jungle we took them from. So it's not making sense. So when you say criminal justice reform to take the kids out of jail, where are you going to take them to? You're taking them and dropping them off back in the same place and say, you know what? I want you to survive a little different than when I picked you up. That's not criminal justice reform. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to take you right back to the same place that I picked you up and put you in. But then we say, well, he's a habitual defender. No, not really. He's trying to survive. And what you did was you took him and put him back in the same environment that you took him from. He's the same lion that he was when you picked him up. So that's the things that we have to begin to think about. And we have to go beyond what everybody's telling us and actually do the research and pay attention to the research. Data and research go hand in hand.
Right.
But however, I can play with data how I choose, and it can have my narrative based off of how I want it to be read.
Yes.
So let's
Right.
not get that confused.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the things, and I'm glad you brought that up because we talked about that. We talked about how data can be manipulated in order to best serve the manipulator, right? There's an educator within my district that recently took her child out of one school because she just couldn't take it anymore. Mind you, she works in our district and removed her child from one of our schools to she was not happy about the level of education her daughter was receiving. That is a stern warning. You talked about the House bill being a warning. That when educators won't bring their children to your district, most of let's go back to this. So most of A-Leaf ISD educators do not live in our district.
Of course not. But you said something powerful on Facebook the other day. When are we going to start our charter schools? Because when are we going to start our charter schools? Because the writing is on the wall.
Yes.
Mattress and Matt got 3.
But people were mad at me. People got mad at me because I said that I wanted to start a charter school. But one thing, Errol Jones, he was here. I was here. You were here too. And we were talking about when are the oppressed going to walk away from the oppressor's education
That's
system?
because we're too emotional. We get emotional about things and we can't think when you're emotional. Because now your emotions are thinking for you. However, my thing is if you're playing chess, this man made the first move already.
Yes.
And he showed you his hand.
Yes.
So what are we going to do? We're going to sit here. What's going to happen? They're going to close down all the little African-American schools.
Which is about 40.
And what's going to happen is we're not going to have nowhere to go to school and they're going to bus us somewhere.
Yep. And then the issues start for
There
real.
you go.
Because you got to think about it. Where are we going? Who showed up originally when there were issues in the district and they were talking about closing schools because they were in our IR status? Who showed up for those meetings? It wasn't black people.
Nope.
It was the people, the parents of those kids that did not want your child coming to their schools.
Of course.
And so that's the issue that I try to get people to understand is like, look, it's not about them showing up because they want to ensure that your schools don't get closed. They want to make sure your kids don't come to their schools. And so, to your point, you're absolutely right, brother.
Just like in my district, they open up a brand new charter school right now, and on Lady Hale in 59.
Which one?
Lady Hale 59, the school called Idea Public Schools.
Yes.
They bring a brand new one right now.
So what's your feeling on it? About charter schools?
About
What's
charter
your
schools
feeling?
as a whole. And here's the deal. I implore anybody to be honest. If you are hiding behind a false facade, then you have failed this community and yourself immediately. Don't be afraid of what people are going to say about what you feel about charter schools, about whatever the community.
You better stand firm with your research now, because I'm going to ask you why now.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be honest.
we're going to hold you because we would be doing you a disservice if we did not hold you to the fire. Absolutely. So, what are your thoughts on charter? Let me make it easy for you. So, I am not on board with charter schools that ultimately fail our communities. If they bring in spec ed children and then kick them out when they feel like they can't get through to them. They take money from the public schools and they realistically don't really benefit our communities. They're just realistically sucking our districts dry. Now, that being said, a charter school managed and promoted and put in place by the right person can truly implement the change. There are charter schools in other states that are phenomenal.
No, let him answer the question, because I want to know how he
that's
feel about
my
it.
take on it. But we want to hear yours, Mr. Sam Smith, that is running for Texas State Representative 141, District 141. That is Sophronia Thompson's, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Sophronia Thompson, who's held the seat, and Mr. Sam Smith is challenging her, and we are about to hear his take on charter schools.
I do not support charter schools. The reason being is that most charter schools has failed. I believe that our kids deserve to go to their home schools and neighborhoods. I believe when you create more charter schools in the neighborhood, that drain the kids.
Speak into the mic.
Yeah, you gotta get up and put
So they drain the kids from the neighborhood schools going to charter schools. Now, I believe that kids have options. Parents should have options sending their kids what school they want to. But I do not support charter schools because most.
So what? Brother, let me stop you.
No,
quick.
no,
hold
let
on.
him
I got it. I gotta do it right now because you just said you don't support charter schools, but then you said that children should have choices. So here's the deal: what choices are you talking about? Are you talking about Catholic schools, Christian schools?
He's talking on opinion right now, and not facts. And that's the thing that what we as young people have to come to the table with.
Okay.
We cannot come with our opinions because opinions don't mean much.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, a charter school can be ran by the state.
Yes.
Just like
there are
any
public charters
Thank you.
that are part of the district.
So you have to be careful when you make statements like that because not all charters belong to an individual or an organization.
Yes.
Right.
Some of them are state funded.
Yes.
So what do you say about a state funded school? Because you just told us that you don't support it. And the reason why I'm adamant about this is because when we go to the House, we have to be unified on something.
Yes.
Because if we're not unified, we're gonna split the vote and it's not gonna go anywhere.
If you guys are both elected, that's the consensus. My expectations as a constituent, whether he's running for my district, you're not running for my district. My concern is for anybody, even Elvonte, is that when you get there, that you are building a consensus across all your colleagues to better provide education for the disenfranchised and minority communities. That Title I designation really is not what you really want. It does allow you to have additional funding and different things, but at the end of the day, we know what that really means to our community. And so, like I said, I am for charter schools, but not in the capacity that we have. There's no real oversight. The other thing that I'm kind of happy with, because I would like to open a charter school. And my charter school would be above me, because I would include educators.
Can't do charter, we have to do private. But
private is a good idea.
You gotta go private. I'm gonna tell you why we have to go private. Private will allow us to get away from the STAR test and have our own education system ran by us. That's what we need. We don't need the oversight of the state to tell us why our kids are passing and why they're failing. Because when I think about 56% as the passing rate, my kids are passing to fail.
Yes.
They're not passing, they're failing. Because 56% is failing. So
Yes.
you still don't know anything, you just know more than the bottom half.
Anything less than 70% to me, realistically, 75% you fail.
So
I don't care
does
what the
private school
scale
receive-
says.
Does private school receive public funding?
No.
No, private schools are you pay for your child.
That's
So-
just- so if
like
you want to
Second
say,
Baptist-
that's what I'm saying. So if you want to send your child to private school, though, who's gonna pay for that
You ready?
child to go to
You
charter
ready for
school?
this?
You are.
I'm ready.
Number
You are.
one, think about if we all was to pay for our kids, right? To go to a private school. His kid get to go for free because it's been supplemented by how much we're paying.
Yes.
So the thing about it is, it's a game, and you have to. It's numbers, like anything else. So my thing is, there's going to be people that can afford to come, and there's going to be people that can't afford to come. However, how many private schools are in the middle of black and brown communities? Okay, so that lets you know right there that you can afford it. You're just not putting them there. And that's us, because that's our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And we're choosing not to educate our own. Because when I think about all these other schools in these other areas, they're educating their own. They're creating their own narrative. We're not creating our own narrative. Somebody else is. So for me, I'm for the right charter schools.
Yes.
I'll put it that way. So I'm not going to say I'm against, and I'm not going to say I'm for, but I'm against any education system that's truly going to educate the kid holistically.
So what about like all these kids who are disabled or have disabilities who
Well,
are
you're
the
talking about
state?
spec ed? Well,
You
spec
know-
ed, the failure in spec ed, we can attribute that to, hold on a second. Let me see. We can attribute that to the failure of the TA to hold those spec ed, those charter schools accountable for spec ed, because what my understanding is that they are ultimately in a position where they can just
Say no.
release.
But my thing is, to answer your question, what we have to begin to do is, there's one thing I liked about Europe, right? Let's look at Europe's model. Europe's model, it's almost 0% unemployment there. Why? Because they understand that this sped kid has a place in society. Whether that's stuffing envelopes, working at a factory, we might say I don't believe that. But we know at the end of the day, this kid is going to give back to society. What we do is we get so selfish and say, you know what? I don't like that. I don't like the way that sounds. I don't like the way that looks. And then this baby ends up graduating and becomes an adult. It's no longer a baby. Where are they going to go? Now they can't get a job. They can't work in a factory because they don't know how. So what we need to start doing is creating programs that will teach these kids how to move, how to make money, how to create jobs for themselves. That's what we have to be able to do in our system. And I feel like we get so left behind and caught up in the college. Everybody got to go to college. All our kids aren't going to college. So I think that's one of the first steps that we would have to do. We have to begin to implement how are these kids going to make the difference in society, like, period, because they have a right to this world just like everybody else.
Right.
Man, I agree with you, and I just hate that the fact that a lot of people here have such a sour taste in their mouth when it comes to charter. They really don't understand. We're looking at the bad charters, the ones that have failed our communities and broken down and torn us apart, versus my idea of a charter would be to reach out to people like you, educators, and say, bring you to the table and say, what would your ideal educational institute look like? What would that look like? And then let's run with it, because the charters, private charters, are ultimately not held to the same standards. So ultimately, they can kind of operate within a different demographic of education, so they can create programs.
So I don't even know, honestly, I don't know the perfect model for education, but I do know millions of people that do have the perfect model, and those are our kids. They know how they want to be taught.
Yeah.
Who am I to tell a kid how they should be taught? So I believe that sometimes we have to go to our kids and ask them, give me the model of what you want your school to look like. You know, because once you start asking the kid what is it that they want, they will take onus on it and say, I can own this for myself, because of the simple fact that that's what they did. You know, they created that. And I think we rely on teachers and administrators too much when there's a kid sitting in a classroom that can draw that model of that classroom better than we can.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
Can we
So-
move the subject off of education and talk about something? We have like 30 minutes left.
Well, I
like
know we're gonna
What
talk
you
about,
wanna talk
we're gonna talk about
HIV
things,
funding, or we
Let's
can
go.
talk about, like syringe needles being available to everybody. An exchange needle where it's a safe place for somebody who is using drugs, because we do know that it does happen. There's a place in Austin that is currently doing it, and they see that the transmission of diseases drop tremendously. Houston currently is number 12 in the nation for new HIV diagnosis. Most of those are Black African American women who are being diagnosed. And so when we're talking about HIV, we're talking about the community. HIV does not have a face, but at the same time, we do know it is affecting our Black and brown people more than it is affecting our white community. And so how are we? I know we're talking about education as well too, but we also, when we're talking about education, we have to talk about education regarding HIV and how we're going to make sure that it's okay to get tested, to making sure that our PCPs are testing everybody who walks in their door. It becomes a normal lab. It doesn't happen right now in the state of Texas. If you run an HIV test, you have to have a symptom. The doctor has to say, why are we running? Excuse that. Is it because you're sick? Is it because you have a high fever? Not because, hey, you know what, I want to make sure that I'm safe and I want to make sure that I'm HIV negative. That test will get denied. But the doctor has to like kind of fizzle the numbers and write a diagnosis for you that will make it so that the insurance company will pay for your HIV. I just would like to talk about a little bit more on as we're talking about education, but we also have to talk about grown folks now.
I have a question for you. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm ignorant to the fact, to be honest with you, and I want to say I know everything, but that's one topic that I truly don't have knowledge on. And I would love to sit down and talk with you and talk to some advocates to find out more, because honestly, I don't have a clue. Now, I can have an opinion, but I feel like I told you earlier, opinions don't mean much to me if I can't back it up with actual research and actual facts. So for me, I'm going to kind of back away from the topic because I don't know it. Now, you can educate me on it, and I would love to be educated on it, but I don't know the topic to have an opinion.
Well, I mean, do you feel, that goes for you, Sam, as well, too. I mean, do you guys feel that Texas should be able to have, in every city, a safe place where a safe needle exchange can happen? No matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, you just have a place to exchange a needle for a clean needle. And that itself goes
a lot of places are going to that now because it's important. A lot of people feel like that. Well, you're just you're just feeding it, right? You're feeding the issue by giving it. But what you don't understand is that a person that's going to do what they want to do, right? And no matter how bad it endangers the next person, a lot of times, if you are willing to do something, you're not really considering others, right? Especially if you're in a drug thing, your mind is gone. It's a done deal now. So sharing needles ultimately leads to a lot of issues and things. We need to get in front of that. There are a lot of states and actually countries that have actually taken the approach that, hey, we know you're going to do it, but here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to provide free drug rehabilitation. We're going to have this needle exchange program so that you get clean needles to ultimately do your drugs. And we're also going to monitor you with a physician so that we can better understand the whole issue with the addiction so that we can try to work to eradicate it on the other side.
So to answer your question, yes, I'll be willing to advocate for that, but I also would like some research and the data to say that I support this and this is why. But yes, based off of what you just told me, I'll be more than happy to advocate for it. However, I would like to be trained and talked to about the topic.
I want to have you on my show. I host Paul's Impact.
Yeah, you have to come on Paul's
Monday.
Impact. So we got an additional person that joined us, and now two people. You brought a friend.
I know.
You brought a friend, and so. We've been here talking about education and all the other cool stuff that coincides with running for office and how serious you need to be. We have an amazing young lady. I've been watching her, and me and Elvonte talked about you the other day.
Okay, hopefully good things.
For those people that, if you're here in Houston and you recognize the organization Young in Politics, we have two of the founders in the house, Mr. Elvonte Patton and Audrie Lawton.
Yes.
So Audrie, you just joined us. Tell us about yourself and what you got going on right now.
Okay, so my name is Audrie Lawton. I am a native Houstonian. I am a lawyer by day, and I've become a politico by night. I ran for office a while back. It seems like forever now, but I initially ran for office. That's how I met this gentleman right here. I was not successful in that race. I ran for a JP seat, but I stayed involved. And I recognized a need. There was a great need, especially in the Black community, for voices, for leadership, for education. So it's very important, kind of what you guys were already talking about. That's a big piece of voter education, is education on the actual issues. From that point, I started working with the Black Women's PAC, and working with the Houston Black American Democrats, and now I am currently the chair of the Houston Black American Democrats and seeking re-election this Saturday.
Awesome. You know what? Thank you for joining us. I know that your schedule was kind of, and thank you, realistically, all of you. I know that it's, for some it was last minute. Thank you for joining us. Don Rogers, is that your name? I see the tag over there.
That is my name.
And
Yes,
so
sir.
we're gonna let's see who this amazing person is. Don, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Well, hello, and I'm sorry I crashed the party. I'm glad I crashed the party.
Yes,
right.
we're
That's
Because
glad.
I get a chance. I met this gentleman before. Good to see
Yes.
you again. I'm meeting new people. I know these two over here. Don Rogers running for the 334th District Court as a judge.
Awesome.
And so that's what I'm doing for
I don't
2020.
want no tickets ever.
You
Ever.
won't get any tickets ever. I can promise you that.
that.
But yeah, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I've been working on. The campaign trail. It's been
So
pretty
what
fun.
is the base of that? What type of cases are seen in that court?
Well, it's your civil cases.
Civil
so
cases.
it's everything that has to be resolved with monetary disputes.
So like small claims court.
Yeah, like small claims court, but bigger numbers.
Bigger numbers. I'm
Bigger
suing you,
numbers.
Elvonte.
Yes.
I got a friend in the court, so we're gonna get automatic judgment, bro.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. So that's what I'm going to start telling people. That's my platform. No, seriously.
No, but
But,
people don't understand how important it really is to have the right people in place because even justice of the peace, that's a serious deal.
Absolutely.
Because you're talking about evictions, you're talking about like civil disputes and all kind of things, traffic tickets and minor stuff and
Yes.
things like that. And you guys see a lot of juveniles.
Yes.
And so with you, that's a big deal because people are now sue happy.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people that are definitely sue happy, and we need to definitely have the right people in place that are going to really look at the evidence and the information and go, nah, it just seems like you're just trying to play a game and use the justice system to your advantage, because we have to be honest, there are people that do that. As far as education is concerned, as far as economics, you got people gentrifying their own community out.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
That is very true.
So, Josh brought up some very important points, so I definitely want to utilize the last little bit of time. I'm glad you ladies were able to join us because I'm big on conversation. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you know that I
Yeah.
love to post some amazing comments that actually make the wheels turn because we don't have conversations enough, right? And we're not open to other people's opinions. We ultimately shoot them down without realistically having some type of dialogue about why we don't agree. So that way we can somehow, if possible, meet in the middle. So, Josh, you talked about the needle exchange. For those that maybe you do know, maybe you don't, Josh has a show, Pause Impact, that is for individuals living with HIV. We have to be realistic that HIV is still present and a very important discussion needs to be had about it. We need to talk about the availability of health care facilities, whether they're free or low cost to individuals, because Josh, I'm not privy. I'm like Elvonte, and I'd like to give you a shout out because you spoke truth by saying, hey, I don't know much about that, but I'm willing to converse about it and become more knowledgeable about it. So I applaud you on that because most people just try to fly by the seat of their pants and make up some BS and, there it is. But, so Josh, kind of help us to understand what a person living with HIV and also being low income, what their life would look like in today's society.
That's really good because I just got diagnosed a year ago and I should have been dead. My T cell count was 10. That's one of the lowest. 0 is the lowest you can have, and a normal person will have 2,000. And I was at 10, and my doctor was like, "I'm not sure how you're still walking, and you should be in the ICU at the moment. But we'll start you on drugs." It took me 3 months when I when I first got diagnosed to get medication. It took 3 months for me to be able to do this because I have no income. This is all through Harris County. They have to do the process. They have to get me approved through Ryan White. Ryan White is approved through Congress. Congress allows money. It just happened to be that this white boy came in, a kid whose name was Ryan White, and with his IV pole and all of a sudden Congress felt the need to address the HIV community. But Houston currently provides $0 taxpayer money for HIV. So the county provides the care for once you get infected or once you have the diagnosis of HIV, but the Houston provides for prevention. And so we really want to advocate prevention as well too, because prevention is the key. I wouldn't want to wish this on anybody,
Right.
you know. And so I have to take medication every single day, and my pharmacy sometimes will delay until the very last day for me to get my medication. And if I don't take it every day, there's a chance that my body can react to the medication and I can no longer take that medication. And if I can no longer take that particular medication, then I'm gonna have to take like 4 pills instead of just 1 pill. And so when the pharmacy plays with your life, but you're low income, how do you really address the community? How do you really address, that part of your life when it's just not me? It's several people that are going to. I actually happen to go to Thomas Street, which is a low income facility, one of Houston's first communities that offer HIV testing as well as HIV care. But I have to renew my paperwork every 6 months. I have to confirm, every 3 to 4 months with my an appointment. They'll cancel my services. But people don't know that you have to wait 4 or 5 hours to see your doctor. Wait 4 or 5 hours to get your lab appointment. Wait 4 hours to go. Who has 4 hours to just sit there at one time? I don't. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to make a living. If I don't work, I don't get paid. And it happens to a lot of people. So people think that you can just get free care and you have 5 hours a whole day, a half a day to just wait to get seen by your physician or to get your medication. You don't. And when we address this, when we try to provide, I'm actually now on the board for the Ryan White. I'm part of the council members, and we would look into this, and we're like, how can we provide more funding? But really, we're trying to provide funding, but at the same time, the state doesn't want to give anything. The city of Houston doesn't want to provide funding. So there's only little things that we can do for that.
So, before you go on, earlier in the show you made mention to donations for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yes.
So my question to you is, what's your wish? Will it be Thanksgiving or Christmas? Which one?
It's both.
Both?
Because
so I'm going to donate to Thanksgiving,
Thank
and
you.
I also would donate toys for Christmas.
Thank you.
Because that's your wish. I'm
Yes.
going to make sure that I commit that, because I felt like I couldn't come here. I let it ride throughout the show, but I couldn't come here without saying that I will donate to both.
Thank
So,
you. I mean, and
one thing that strikes me from what you're saying is, and this is why I think it's important that I have to lead it back to voting and
Yes.
understanding our rights, right? I think that what we have to do as human beings is understand that whether it's HIV, whether it's cancer,
Yes.
whether it's diabetes, right? What's the common factor here is prevention,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And somebody I know named President Barack Obama, right, had this crazy idea that if you can provide preventative care,
Yes.
right, you're actually going to lower
Yes.
the cost of health care. You're going to lower all of these. You're going to have more things, be able to provide more care for more people. And you're going to have ultimately less people using hospitals and emergency rooms as a treating physician, right? And so I think that until we realize that in every community, right, black, white, Asian, whatever community, until we realize that all of our problems, whatever they are, we should be with a collective voice, right, and demand from our state reps. Our judges, who will be the ones who have to interpret the law, our leadership all the way to the White House, right? That we get proper health care. And so I think that part of that is just being able to relate. And
Yeah.
so having you come to a group like my group to come talk about your plight, and you'll be surprised because some people there may have some of the same, issues that you have accessing health care. Because really the real deal is that we're all, it's people who work hard, but we don't have enough
Yep.
to make ends meet, right? And so I think that that's one of the big things that we've got to do. There's strength in numbers, and we have to figure out a way to come together and make demands. I mean, we need to demand it. And so I think that's something that we need to really, work on.
I mean,
as
with
a
Houston
country.
being 12th in the nation for new HIV diagnosis, to me that's appalling. Houston, we pride ourselves in a diverse community. We pride ourselves in being very prideful of our state and our country and our city, but yet when it comes down to education, when it comes down to HIV education as well too, when it comes down to just healthcare, we lack that service. We just think that it's somebody else's problem. You know what? I have health insurance, so I don't really worry about all that stuff. You're not in my boat, so I don't really see what you're doing. But there's so many people out there that don't know that they're HIV positive and are afraid to get tested because the fact that they're like, oh, if I now know that I'm HIV, I'm gonna have to, there's a stigma behind it. But if we can get away with that and start testing people, and then if you are sexually active, get you on PrEP, which is the HIV prevention. If you know that you have multiple partners this is male or female, this is gay, straight. If you have multiple partners, you just don't know who that other partner is sleeping with. You don't know what that other partner is doing drug and IV injections by drug, or sharing needles with somebody else who may be HIV positive. And that's where the whole thing is, exchanging the needles. Is we can get somebody to have a new needle, then they may not be sharing with somebody else, and they're like, oh, we can just get a brand new one, no problem, and that reduces the rate of infection.
Can I interject briefly? Because one of the things that I've noticed listening to commercials and watching television is that there is still not as much conversation as it was about HIV AIDS, and with regard to PrEP and other medications, it's almost kind of drawing a picture that you pop one pill a day and you'll be fine.
Yes.
And I don't want our young people, I don't want anyone to think that it's that simple. I want there to be more education. The stuff that you've been saying to us right now has been more informative than anything I think I've heard in a very, very long time, with regard to media, commercials, television. And so I love the message. I love the fact that you are opening this conversation. We may have been here for one topic, but you are making us talk and think about these things that, quite frankly, I hadn't thought about. So one, I thank you for that. I thank you for the platform. And two, which ways or how can we get more information? What are some of the websites or some of the meeting places that I can go to? Because doing this, and by I say this, campaigning, I am meeting more people than I've ever met before, and I'm loving every moment of it. But it's not just about me. It's about learning what people are dealing with, what they're going through, listening. And so how can I learn more?
If you guys go to the Ryan White, Google Ryan White Houston office, they have I'm a graduate of Project Leap, which is a 17-week course for 4 hours every week that they teach you about HIV. They teach you what's happening in Houston. And I had no idea about all this happening until I got diagnosed. Once I got diagnosed, I started researching how did this happen to me, and how come I was not informed of all this prevention that I could have been taking. I could have been taking PrEP. I could have been taking Truvada at the moment, and I wouldn't have gotten HIV. So but it's the fact that we're not educating everybody. We're not talking about intercourse or sexual relationships in our schools anymore. We're not talking about sex. We're not talking about the different types of okay measures to be interactive, because we do know that our kids are having sex at a very young age, and that's just a fact. I know this because I have a friend whose daughter was 9 years old when she had a UTI from having intercourse with a boy. And they really didn't know anything really better. They were just these hormones that these kids have, but no education. The parents are really divorced. Dad doesn't talk about it. Mom doesn't talk about it. They don't learn it in school. Where do they get this platform from? Online. They started searching her iPhone, all kind of pornographic stuff on there. 9 years old, and she's looking at hardcore porn. And so when we're thinking about this stuff, we have to start thinking about our kids. It's from the lower kids that we tell them, hey, yes, there is a pill you can take for HIV that will make you can live a longer life, but don't get it. If you're going to be sexually active, then use a condom. If you're going to be sexually active and you don't like to use a condom, then get on PrEP. condoms are just one use in the table that we have a toolbox. Not everybody's going to use a condom. Not everybody's going to have the type of education. But if we can start telling our students and our kids and everybody out there, that our friends and family, hey, when was the last time that you got tested for HIV? I haven't got tested for HIV. Why haven't you got tested for HIV? Oh, I don't need to. I'm not sexually active. Well, just get tested anyways. And then that way you know for sure that you're 100%.
Is PrEP an expensive drug?
So it is expensive if you don't have insurance. But there is a lot of now grants that you can get for low-income people that will give you the PrEP. It's a little bit harder, and it is becoming more available. But people are still not aware that they can get PrEP to begin with. Or they think that once they get PrEP, it's like a one-stop solution. We still have to talk about STDs. We still have to talk about, sexually transmitted diseases. We have to talk about, gonorrhea. All these things that people are going to get as well too, other than just, HIV. And that's just one part of the healthcare system and the education that we really have to focus, because like you said, it kind of died down. And I feel like that's because people are not dying any longer from HIV as a rapid response as they used to. People were dying left and right before the medication became available. And now that people are no longer dying like that, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And the people who've been advocating are tired. They've been doing this for a long time. So it's up to the new generation, like you said, there needs a new people to come into the group, not just politicians, but advocates as well too. We have to. That's why I created a pause. Like, we don't have a show for people who are living with HIV where we can get information, where we can educate the public, where we can bring in politicians who are running who are going to represent us, so that they can understand what we're dealing with, and letting know that this is not an off the table issue, that we have to start talking about this on a 101, and making sure that our representatives know that, hey, HIV is still very prominent here in Houston. New York spends about $28 million on HIV prevention. Houston spends $0.
I don't know much, but I have a friend who's HIV. Very close friends, went to high school together. We still talk every day. I believe that our generation need to be taught, because a lot of us don't know nothing about it. I'm 27 years old. I don't know nothing about it, to be honest.
Yes.
And I'm willing to learn. And so I think, like, once a month, we should have a class in different areas of Houston teaching people about it. And that's a solution that I'm thinking that will help us to understand what's HIV, how can we prepare for it, and continue to move forward.
And with that, I would like to also be teaching about hypertension, about diabetes, about, because diabetes, hypertension is all leading causes as well too, including the HIV. We have to make sure that when we're educating people, we're also educating them about your health in general. Say, hey, you know what, if you exercise this a little bit more, or hey, if you actually eat a little bit healthier, you can get reduced off of that high blood pressure medication, your cholesterol medication, or whatever that's preventing your current body is affecting. So HIV is great, and I want to make sure we still focus on that, but I want to make sure that we bring a table to
Wait, did you say
everybody.
HIV is great?
No, talking about HIV and
education
about HIV. But when mostly it affects our brown and, like, we've had this conversation before, when it affects the black and brown people now, I feel like everybody has stepped away now, because it's no longer affecting the white population. And it's now more geared to the black and brown people.
So do you feel like you become the minority in the scope, as far as, like, because of focus? Like, if you think about Atlanta and what the progression the progress that they made on combat and doing putting programs in place and things like that, do you feel like Houston is just behind the curve and, like, way off base? Because I've been watching a couple comments come through. One, Aaron has been loving you.
Oh, thanks.
Aaron Toberman, that's my buddy, and so she's been high-fiving you a lot.
Yes.
Yes, but you're absolutely right, and she did say that you need to be with Harris Health, and you need to be on staff to help them to understand it. Because here's the deal: you guys all acknowledge the fact that you learned something. Because if it doesn't directly affect you, you don't know. And so with the same thing was with me when I started to get involved in politics, and then you had to include everybody in the conversation. And so I started to learn more about the LGBTQIA plus community, things that I didn't know, and ultimately kind of helped change the way I thought or was raised. Because we have to be clear that a lot of how you're raised, it determines how you see people. It's the same way within some demographics that see black people as garbage, it's based upon their teachings. And so, Josh, I just commend you because I know, as long as I've known you, you've been very open about helping people understand that, the stigmas, the stigmas are horrible, right? Because for so long, you hear people even now, if you were to go out right now and tell somebody, which would be the worst thing you would ever have to do in your life, if you had to tell somebody that you were HIV positive or that you had AIDS, it would be very difficult, a very difficult conversation, and we have to give people like Josh the kudos for the courage to actually speak about it and be willing to open up about it because of all the negative stigmas that are out there about it. Like I've seen people oh man, don't call for me, and it's like.
This day.
Exactly. It's transmitted.
Everything we know,
or why would you want them to use the same bathroom with you because you can catch HIV? And it's like, well, the probability of you catching it from a bathroom
Is zero.
Yeah.
Let's just put it there, it's zero. The
Yeah.
chances of you getting HIV can only be contracted through semen and vaginal secretions.
So if you're on the ship, you said semen, like in the Navy or something. Here's the deal. Don't take me to it. I like to
Through blood.
bring
Sharing
levity
needles.
to situations because until we actually step back and really evaluate and have that one moment where we cleanse ourselves through laughter, we will never truly be able to understand the girth of what we're dealing with. And so this is serious. So Josh, I really applaud you for everything that you do. And I will always be here to support you. Hence, we're going to get some more of those $200 checks. So Elvonte already promised. Aaron said that she's going to help you, so we're going to hold her to that as well. I've been trying to get her to call in. She's been avoiding me and stuff. A lot of you watching, coming in and watching, we're going to hold you accountable. The realization is, people, that if you're a candidate, I'm going to hold you accountable.
As you should.
I'm going to hold you accountable. And what we need is a stronger consensus amongst the voters, your potential constituents, to do thus the same. Because that's the problem we have now. When you look at 1.085 million voters registered in this area, but yet only 300,000 actually vote on election day. And that's a problem. If you look at my district and then you look at the 100 and something registered voters, but only 12,000 voted this last election, which equates to about 12% of registered voters. That's trash. It's garbage. And so what I tell anyone is that we are orchestrators of change. And if we are not doing our part, then we are also failing the same people we say we love and that we will come to the forefront for and fight. That's not true if you're not going out there and really doing what you guys are doing, which is run. Even if it's something as small as running to be the chair of a Democratic club. Because you're still helping to facilitate the message of voting and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Elvonte, for stepping forward and saying, hey, I will be your voice in Austin, Texas. Now let's be clear about the pay. $7,200 is actually the salary, but it's $180 a day salary when you're in session. It doesn't equate to a lot of money. And it's a whole lot of travel when you got a family that lives here. Because let's say none of us in this room, unless if you can, I need to borrow some money. We can afford to move to Austin, Texas.
No.
Because Austin is more expensive than Houston. And so, with that being said, and with our time constraints, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give each of you 1 minute. 1 minute. We're going to start with the ladies. Because, ladies first. I don't care about whatever anybody says. We're going to start with the ladies. And we're going to let you go ahead and give everybody a little something about you and how they can contact you and what's important to you and where you're going. So,
Okay.
Audrie Lawton, what you got for us?
All right, so it's Audrie Lawton. I do have a Facebook page. I have a couple of Facebook pages because I'm very involved in a lot of things. But Audrie Lawton, I am the current chair of the Houston Black American Democrats. I'm running for re-election. This important date is Saturday. That's this Saturday, November the 23rd. It's going to be at the Justice of the Peace Precinct 7, Place 1. That is on Cullen Boulevard, 5737 Cullen Boulevard at 10 o'clock a.m. If you are a member of HBAD, come out and vote for me. I believe I am the best candidate for this position, clearly. And I do that, I believe that not just because of myself, but because of the wonderful people that I have interacted with throughout these last 2 years. We are a grassroots organization, and the power of HBAD is that we not only seek to have one voice, one vote, or one vote, one voice. We seek to empower black voters. We seek to empower candidates, trained candidates, good candidates, who are going to have the most, have black issues at the forefront of their platforms. We seek to hold them accountable, as you said, not only to elect them, but they're going to come back and they need us to elect them again, right?
Yes, right.
And so we want to make sure that we are strong in that aspect. And we want to advocate for issues. This last year, we actually had a wonderful event. It was a legislative recap event in which we invited all of the black legislators to a forum, and we were able to interact with them and find out more about some of the bills that they sponsored. Find out about what the process was. And one of my goals for this year is that we would actually help in that regard, help find an issue, get behind that, and go to our representatives and ask that they sponsor bills based upon that. So with that being said, I want to thank you for inviting me out.
Awesome.
This has been a wonderful experience.
We'll have to do the actual TV show as well.
Yes.
Thankful to Lady Hale for giving me the opportunity to fill in for her.
Okay.
Elvonte,
Oh, yes, sir.
what you got for us, brother?
So, of course, my name's Elvonte Patton, and I'm running for House District 131. As I stated before, I'm not running to end the era of Alma Allen. I'm actually running to launch the new era that's soon to come next.
The Elvonte Patton era.
Is that so? So I'm really focused on making sure that our community truly gets the education that they deserve, the health care, and the climate change does not truly affect our community the way it's been affecting us, and with health care. And the reason why I say that is because those two things run hand in hand.
Yes.
When our water's not clean, our citizens suffer.
Yes.
So my thing is, I'm ready to fight. I'm not going to fight by myself. I want to fight with you, and I also want to be your voice. Not my voice, but our voice. So I'm Elvonte Patton, running for House District 131.
Do you have a website or phone number or anything? Email
You can find
address?
me on social media everywhere. I will launch my website the moment I do my kickoff.
Awesome, awesome. So Elvonte is definitely out there. If you get a chance, look up Patton University, which will help to give you a little bit more information about Elvonte and what he's capable of doing and what type of person he is. So our next person here, we're going to get her to give us a little bit of insight about her on the closing, is Don Rogers, who's running for
The 334th Civil District Court.
334 Civil Court.
There you go. And
Sue
so-
somebody.
Yeah.
I'll sue somebody now. Know
And-
somebody.
There you go. Let's think of who you could sue. So again, everyone, my name is Dawn Rogers. I have been an attorney for 17 years. I've represented defendants and plaintiffs. I've represented our Houstonians, our taxpayers. I've represented the big corporations. And so I've had an opportunity to see both sides. And I've been the person that is presenting my case to the judge. And that judge not listening to what's being said because they're paying more attention to their prejudices and their biases.
Yes.
And they've made up their mind before I've even opened my mouth, or before my client has opened their mouths, or before the evidence has been presented, how this case is going to go. And when you are the person actually stepping into the courtroom and not the person sitting behind the bench, you have a different vantage point, right? You're able to observe what it is and what kind of changes that you'd like to see happen and actually think of ways to implement them. And that's what I've been doing. So the decision was not an easy one. I'm already in a field that I really enjoy, and I'm in a management position, so I love working with people. I love mentoring and training, but it's confined to those people. So I said, you know what? God has blessed me with a gift, and it's time for me to step out of my comfort zone and to present myself to Harris County. Native Houstonian, been here my entire life, my family, all here, and I just feel as though I'm qualified and I have the experience and the backing and the know-how and the confidence to get this taken care of. So remember my name, Dawn Rogers. They tell you to say it 3 times. Dawn Rogers. Dawn Rogers for the 334th District Court. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So, last but not least, man, we have our final contestant. Oh, don't mess this up. You know, we have to be clear. We have to send a clear message when we decide that or we proclaim that we want to be a part of the collective effort, the positive side of things, that this is no joke and we are ready to fight. And so, Brother Sam Smith, running for 141, brother. Go ahead and close us out and tell us how we can go ahead and contact you. And
Once again, my name is Sam Smith. I'm your candidate for state representative for District 141. You can find me on Facebook, Sam Smith for Texas for 141. Website is Sam Smith, www.samsmithfortexas.com. I'm here to serve the people of Texas, to be the voice that you need. And once again, I'm your candidate for state representative for District 141.
so, that being said, my brother, I really appreciate you guys all coming out and joining us. I really do. I think this is the livest this room has been, and I'm not pulling. No. That's no. That's definitely nothing to discredit anyone else that has a show in here. But we appreciate you all very much, and thank you for coming out. For those that tuned in, hopefully this show has been informative and has to help you to better understand not only different things about HIV and opportunities to be a part of the effort of educating others, but also about these young men and women who have decided to step forth and take the girth and blunt of negativity, because politics is not always positive, and say that I'm here for you and represent. It's been a wonderful evening. I thank you all for joining us. Lady Hale and to her husband, Harold, our thoughts and prayers are with you in this loss of your loved one. We thank you and we appreciate you. Have a safe trip. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been Real Talk with Lady Hale. I'm your guest host, Anton Dowles, for Politics of the People. Thank you for tuning in.
All right.